China and Iran's partnership is a cornerstone of Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Iran provides critical energy resources, while China invests in infrastructure like ports and railways. Over 90% of Iran's oil exports go to China, fueling its industrial growth. This alliance challenges U.S. influence in the Middle East, creating a new axis of power. Satellite imagery shows key trade routes and BRI projects linking the two nations. The relationship is both economic and strategic, with Iran serving as a gateway for China into the region. Iran faces growing protests and economic instability, threatening the regime's survival. Sanctions and inflation have sparked mass demonstrations, with citizens demanding change. The government's reliance on Chinese support has not alleviated domestic suffering. Riot police clash with protesters in Tehran, while flags burn in the streets. This unrest exposes Iran's vulnerability, which could destabilize China's strategic interests. If the regime falls, China risks losing a key ally and energy supplier in the Middle East. The U.S. has intensified sanctions and diplomatic isolation against Iran, crippling its economy. Oil exports are blocked, and foreign investment has dried up. The White House frames this as a strategy to counter China's influence. Satellite images show stranded Iranian oil tankers symbolizing the regime's struggles. These measures exacerbate Iran's internal crises, indirectly pressuring China. The U.S. aims to weaken Iran's regime, which would disrupt China's energy supply and regional ambitions. China provides cautious economic and military aid to Iran to maintain its influence. Trade continues despite U.S. sanctions, with Chinese cargo ships docking at Iranian ports. Military officials exchange handshakes, signaling deeper cooperation. China's goal is to stabilize Iran without provoking the U.S. directly. However, this balancing act is precarious. If Iran collapses, China's investments and strategic foothold in the Middle East could vanish overnight. Iran's collapse would disrupt China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, across the Middle East. Key infrastructure projects, like railroads and ports, rely on Iran's stability. An animated map reveals how supply chains would fracture if Iran falls. China's regional influence would shrink, and its economic losses could reach billions. The BRI, a pillar of China's global strategy, faces its greatest test in Iran. The stakes are high for Beijing's long-term ambitions. The U.S. sees China's support for Iran as a direct challenge to Western influence. At the UN Security Council, delegates clash over resolutions targeting Iran. Heated debates reflect the broader superpower rivalry. China defends its economic ties, the U.S. accuses it of undermining global security. This diplomatic standoff escalates tensions, with Iran caught in the middle. The outcome could redefine alliances in the Middle East and beyond. The U.S. and China increase naval presence near the Strait of Hormuz, a vital oil choke point. Warships from both nations patrol the waters, creating a tense standoff. Iran's instability raises fears of a broader conflict. The U.S. aims to secure energy routes, while China protects its interests. This military brinkmanship underscores how Iran's crisis could trigger direct superpower confrontation. The world watches as the stakes grow higher. Iran's collapse disrupts global oil supplies, sending prices skyrocketing. China, which relies on Iranian crude, faces energy shortages. Stock markets react with sharp declines, and factories slow production. The U.S. leverages this crisis to pressure China further. Animated graphs show oil price spikes and economic ripple effects. China's growth, dependent on stable energy, is now at risk. The crisis reveals the fragility of global supply chains. China faces a critical choice: escalate support for Iran or recalibrate its strategy. Emergency meetings in Beijing debate the risks of deeper involvement. Maps with contingency plans cover tables. Military intervention could provoke the U.S., but withdrawal means losing influence. China's leaders weigh short-term costs against long-term ambitions. The decision will shape the future of Sino-Iran relations and global power dynamics. The U.S. response to Iran's crisis will determine China's next move. A split screen shows the U.S. president delivering a speech and Xi Jinping observing military drills. The world stands at a crossroads. Will Iran's collapse derail China's rise? The outcome hinges on diplomacy, strategy, and the unpredictable nature of global politics. One thing is clear: the stakes have never been higher for both superpowers.